Let's go ahead and get started on the pattern now. I want to go over a couple of things in the pattern first before we start right away. We start with the arms first because these need to be done while we are crocheting with our main color, and you don't want to have to stop off and bind off and cut your yarn in order to make your arms so that we can sew them, or not sew them, so that we can crochet them into the body. What you want to do is go ahead and make them first, set them aside, and then we'll bring them in later on when we need them. And then I wanted to also go ahead and show you some of the terminology that I use. Everybody is different in their pattern making, and this is how I choose to write my patterns. So let me just give you an example here. We'll start with this right here. In parentheses, I have put groups of stitches that we're going to work. I have put them into groups so that it's easier to keep track of where you're at instead of having all one line of stitches and then not knowing where you're at. You can focus on one certain group for your stitches. And so this is how my pattern will read. SC11 means single crochet, 11 single crochets. So you're going to do 11 single crochets. 2SC means 2 single crochets into 1. So that is an increase. So 2SC means 2 single crochets in 1. And then again, SC5 means just to single crochet 5. So you could have, by looking at this here, you would actually, in this group, you're going to have 18 stitches. Now, I've also given the stitch count at the end of each row so that we can keep track of where we are. You are more than likely going to want to count your stitches in the first few rows just to make sure that you're going along the right way. You don't want to lose track of where you're at. But anyway, that was okay. So that's one example of how I pattern write. Now when we go to where we're going to decrease, let's read a row here. Let me get a piece of paper so that we're not running into. Okay, so it reads SC2 together. So that means single crochet 2 together. You're literally bringing 2 single crochets and decreasing them into 1. Then single crochet 15 and single crochet again 2 together. So this group of stitches right here is 15, 16, 17 stitches in this one little parentheses group. And so then you're going to keep following that along for row 11, and you'll end up having 50 single crochets in that row. That's how, like I said, that's how I pattern write. It's just the easiest way for me to do it. And so hopefully once you get the hang of how I've written it, it'll make more sense. I think a lot of people actually can read it this way. But it'll be nice for me to be able to go along with you and read it at the same time. And then also, when you see an asterisk little star sign right here, that also means to do something within that group. So you're going to go through both the arm and the body single crochet 5. We'll get to that step later, but I just wanted you to know that the parentheses are there for a very specific reason so that you don't lose your place. All right, we're going to go ahead and start on the arms because that's where our pattern starts. If you need a refresher on the magic ring, I'm going to go ahead and put that in the description at the bottom so you can click on that if you need to see how to do a magic ring. If not, this is where we start. So we do 6 single crochet into a magic ring. All right, we want to pull our tail shut. Don't close it all the way yet. You'll have a hard time getting into those stitches and you don't want to do that. So we're using the invisible increase and invisible decrease throughout this whole pattern. I will also link to that tutorial as well. So row 2, which is what we're on right now. Hang on, let me back up a bit. I want to pull that tight so that it doesn't have like a little gap when I go around. Row 2 calls for us to single crochet 2 around in each single crochet. And so that's going to give us, y'all, I cannot find my stitch. There it is. Doing that will give us 12 single crochets. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, now this is where we can go ahead and cinch the tail a little bit tighter, and you can close that up all the way right there. See, now always remember that your right side of your project is actually this side right here, because we're going to be working around in a spiral, and this is going to start flipping up like this into a little tube. Always make sure that your tail is inside your project. Your tail does not need to be hanging from the bottom. That's the wrong way. And then you'll be crocheting inside out. Okay, so the pattern goes, we want to do 8 rows of 12 single crochets. So I'm not going to do 8 rows of 12 on the camera because that would just take too long. So what I'm going to do throughout the pattern is when it calls for rows of certain amounts, I'm going to go ahead and just pause it and come back. So what you're going to see when you come back, or when I come back, is 2 finished arms. So I will be back. I'm back with 2 finished arms. And what I did was I cut my yarn and left some extra tail to the end, and I'm going to show you why. Because in the pattern, it calls for us to do an invisible finish. Now, if you notice, when you're done with a project, because you're going in a spiral, you're always going to be 1 level higher than you were when you started your row. That's just the way that spirals work. So we're going to make this less noticeable of a step there, and we're going to kind of close this gap. We're not going to lose any stitches or anything like that. We're just going to close it up, and I'll show you how. So once you've cut your yarn, you're wanting to pull that tail through. Pull it through like that. Kind of tighten it up there a little bit. And you're going to want your tapestry needle now. I love this one. That's my clover. I love everything clover. Okay, we want to close it up, so we're going to skip this first single crochet that is right next to our last one right here. We're going to skip that one. Instead, we're going to go into the second one. So you're going to go front to back under both bars, and you're going to go away from you, pull out like that, and then you want to bring your yarn back over towards you so that it's in front. Kind of turn your project a little bit to the side so that you can see your bars on your first single crochet where you left off. This is where we pulled our tail through. The first, right there. Okay, so with your yarn pulled towards you, you're going to take your needle and you're going to just go through this one right here, the back loop only the back. You're going to go down into that and pull your yarn through with your needle. Now I'm not going to pull it tight, I just want to show you. See how we've created another single crochet. We've created this just by going through and into those other loops. So you can pull it just a little bit. You don't want to pull it super, super tight. Pull it so that it matches up. And now, yes, you do have still a little bit of a step, but it's not as drastic as if you were just like that. See what I mean? It's not as drastic. So what we want to do is now we want to hide this tail by threading it through. We don't want it to pop out at the wrong time. You can cut after you've woven it through a couple of areas, you can go ahead and trim it and just cut that right off. This is our second arm, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set these aside and keep them somewhere safe so that we can use them later on. And now we're going to move on to the legs. So the legs are done in the same, they're started in the same way as your arms are, and that's with the magic ring. So we're going to magic ring 6 single crochets. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And pull, but not all the way. And same as before, we're going to use our invisible increase and here I have tightened up mine too much, so it's hard for me to get in there. So the second row of our legs, number 2, is 2 single crochets into each single crochet around, because we want to go from 6 to 12. So let's go ahead and there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. All right, there's our 12 single crochets right there for our second row. Row 3 is 2 single crochets, single crochet 1 6 times. So that's an increase and then a single crochet 6 times around, and that will give us 18 single crochets. So what I want to do is I want to grab my stitch marker now, and I will mark my very first single crochet so I don't lose place. So 2 single crochet, single crochet 1. That's 1 of our 6 pattern. Okay, 2 single crochet, single crochet 1, 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 2 single crochet, and then our last single crochet one, and that gives us 18 single crochets, because here we are back at our stitch marker. So pattern calls for us to do 6 rows of 18. So I'll go ahead and start the first row for you just to see, so you can see what's be on the same track. All right, mark your first stitch, always mark your first stitch. So we just go all the way around, and this is going to be our first row of 6. And same as before, I'm gonna cut to doing the boring part where I just go round and around for 6 rows, and then I will come back, and I will come back with 2 of my finished legs, and we can start building the body from there. All right, so there's my first row of 6. Technically, that is my 4th row of the pattern. So as you can see, you just keep going same way around and around for 6 rows. And once you're satisfied with where your tail is at, go ahead and snip it off, because you don't need that anymore. But make sure that you're crocheting on the right side. Always have your tail inside your project. Okay, I'll be back. All right, I've got my 2 legs done, and I did the cleaner finish there at the end. So now what we want to do is we have to join these legs together so that we can start building off of these rows right here. We're going to build the body off of these single crochets inside, or on the outside, I mean, of the legs. So we have to close this up so that we can start going around. And in order to do that, what we want to do is we want to kind of take our project right here and kind of smash it like a sandwich. What you want to do is you want to count 1 single crochet in from each leg. So these 2 right here would be 1 crochet in. We want to go not into those, but into the second one. So you stick your hook through the second stitch from the side when we smashed it like a little sandwich. And then you're also going to put your hook underneath the single crochets of the second leg. And we need to pull up our yarn, grab our yarn, and pull it through those 2 legs right there. And hang on to this tail so that it doesn't pull out while you're making that single crochet right there. So we need 1 single crochet, and then again we're going to go through both of the legs with our hook under both of those bars, and we'll do a single crochet again. So that's 2 single crochets. And then one more time, we're going to go through the first leg, through the second leg, yarn over, pull up our hook, and then pull through. So we have 3 single crochets that are binding these legs together. Pull on this tail so that you don't have like a little hole there. Now that we're done joining, what we're going to do is we're going to go on our first row of the body so that we can start building our body up now. and we need to find our first available stitch because we don't want to go into the wrong one. So if you kind of open the legs a little bit, you can see right here is where the last single crochet went into to join the legs. So our next available stitch will be this one right here. Okay, so I'm going to grab my stitch marker, and the pattern calls for us to single crochet 8. So single crochet, let me put my stitch marker in there for later. Okay, so that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then it says to 2 single crochet. So that's an increase, and we will do invisible increase. 1 and 2 in the same stitch. And then it says to single crochet 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and oops, 5. My yarn is splitting so bad. And 6. So that right there is our first leg. That's building up the row of our first leg. And what we want to do is make sure again that we go into the right stitch onto our second leg so that we're not missing or going into one that's already been stitched into. So we don't go into this one, we go into this one right here. Okay, so the pattern calls for us to single crochet 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 2 single crochets for our increase. So 1 and then 2. There we go. And then we need to single crochet 8. 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8 right there. Okay, so now we are at the back of our project where we started, and we have our row, our foundation row that's going to, this is where our body starts getting put together. We have our first row done now, and so we have 32 single crochets around. This is where we're going to start building up our body by making increases in certain areas to make it bigger in some spots. So what we do is our pattern calls for 2 single crochets 3 times. So basically that is an increase 3 over the next 3 stitches. There's 1, let me mark that real quick, and then 2 because it's an increase, and then our second increase, and then Now we do our third increase. And there we go. And now the pattern calls for us to do 4 single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then an increase, so 2 single crochet in 1. There's 2. And then single crochet 4, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're gonna start building up the belly here. So pattern calls for 2 single crochet 4 times. So we're gonna increase 4 times. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we want to repeat that again because we want to build it up on both sides. So the pattern calls for 2 single crochet 4 times again. So here's our increase of 1, 2, and then second increase, third, and fourth increase. And then pattern calls for single crochet 3. So 1, 2, 3, and an increase. So 2 single crochet in 1. So 1, 2, and single crochet 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then single crochet, or I'm sorry, 2 single crochet 3 times, because that's what we did on the first leg right here. So we have to finish the same on this leg because this is where his little butt cheeks are starting. So here's our increase, our first one. 1, 2, 3. Gotta get in there. It's a little bit hard to see. And I crochet so tight that sometimes, there we go, 3. All right. And now we will have 48 single crochets on this row, our second row.